Hey guys, what's going on? It's me, Jay. Yeah, sorry about that before. I had a knock at the door and they answered. But yeah, I'm here to talk about Hell in a Cell 2020, the pay-per-view that took place last night at the Amway Center in Orlando, Florida. Of course, Thunderdome, as it is now, as it always was called by WWE. The results of this: Sasha defeated Bailey to become the SmackDown Women's Champion. Bailey was, of course, the longest running SmackDown Women's Champion in history, and Bailey defeated her. So it's now boss time once again in the WWE as Sasha is now the champion of the Blue Brand. The Blueprint Sasha Banks is now the champion of the Blue Brand of WWE. Um, I think this is great because, like I said, Sasha Banks and Bailey have been the ones really carrying the load for the WWE in this time of crisis with COVID. A lot of the wrestlers haven't been able to compete, like the big names like Roman Reigns or Ronda Rousey or Brock Lesnar. So the ones that have been really carrying the load on the women's end is Sasha Banks and Bailey. Their feud, their feuds with Asuka and Kairi Sane, and then now splitting up the Golden Role Models. And everyone thought that Sasha was going to turn heel and be the one that turned on Bailey. But Vince McMahon was really high on Bailey's heel character, so they kept Bailey heel and they had her turn on Sasha, attack Sasha viciously. It was one of the greatest things I ever saw, even as a Sasha Banks fan. But one of the things I wanted to mention was like a lot of people say, well, Sasha never wins at pay per views. Every time she wins, like first time she won the WWE Women's Championship on Raw was against Charlotte, and it was on a Raw. It was on a Raw that she won her other championships. The pay per view she always loses, like when she lost at SummerSlam. She lost the Raw Women's Championship to Asuka at SummerSlam this past year. So finally, she gets a victory on pay per view, and that's pretty good, cool. Um, in other matches, we for the men's division, we have a new WWE champion. Drew McIntyre lost the belt to Randy Orton last night. This is Randy Orton's 14th title reign. Um, like I said in the beginning of the year when they started to push Drew, I never really was a fan of Drew McIntyre. So even when he won the Royal Rumble, you could go back in the archives and see my opinion on that. When he won the Royal Rumble earlier this year, I was like, they should have gave it to Edge. When he won at WrestleMania against Brock, I was like, it didn't really mean anything because there was no audience at WrestleMania this year. So that went away. And then during his whole reign, it was just boring. So I'm glad to see that Randy Orton is back in the leadership seat, and we'll see where it goes from there. Um, One complaint I had about the pay per view: this whole retribution storyline versus the Hurt Business. Now, I like the Hurt Business. Don't get me wrong. I like Cedric Alexander. I like MVP, Shelton Benjamin, Bobby Lashley. But why always have them job out to Retribution? This just seems like a repeat of 10 years ago with the Nexus. You have this, and a repeat of um, 9 years before that with the WCW Invasion, and in 2002 with the NWO. It's like WWE doesn't know how to do an Invasion storyline. Like when they have something hot, Like with the Nexus, those guys never went over. But Wade Barrett never won the championship. He jobbed out to Cena. They jobbed out to Cena their first match at SummerSlam 2010. You know what I mean? So, and same thing with um, the Invasion guys. Yeah, they won at the Invasion pay per view, but when it really counted, they didn't really win big matches like that. Canyon and DDP jobbed out to Undertaker and Kane. Same thing with the NWO at WrestleMania 18. Scott Hall jobbed out to Stone Cold Steve Austin, and Hulk Hogan jobbed out to The Rock. So whenever they do an Invasion storyline in WWE, it always goes the same way. The Invasion guys are made to look weak by the guys that are already there. So what's really the point of them? Retribution comes out. First week, we talked about it. WWE trying to capitalize on the stuff that's going on in the country with Antifa, um, causing riots with the masks. And that first SmackDown, when they cleared everybody out, and that one girl from Retribution, I don't know her name, um, I think I don't know her name. I know the guys Flapjack and uh, and whatever they have T-Bar, they have stupid names. But anyway, like the girl cleared out the other girl and beat the shit out of her, and they beat the shit out of the guys, and it looks something really like something really intimidating. And when they broke the circuit breakers on Raw the first week they appeared, but then as soon as they revealed the names and they signed their contracts to exclusivity to Raw, which doesn't really make any sense, because why would the Rebel group that's a Rebel group sign contracts? You never saw that in WCW with the NWO. Even their merchandise didn't say WCW on it. And Kevin Nash made a point of that it can't say WCW because according to storyline and kayfabe logic, they're not even supposed to be signed to WCW. They're supposed to be a separate entity. So having shirts licensed by the company that they're invading doesn't really make any sense. So the fact that they signed to one exclusive brand just makes it really retarded. And the first night they have a match with the Hurt Business, one of them loses to Bobby Lashley by submission. And not only that, the Hurt Business switching to baby faces, that doesn't really bother me because I think an invasion storyline, the template for an invasion storyline to me is what they did with the NWO in 1996. What they did with the NWO in 1996, the heels that were heels at the time, when they showed up in WCW, like Ric Flair, like Kevin Sullivan, like the Four Horsemen, and like the Dungeon of Doom, automatically became baby faces. So, and the same thing with when the Nexus showed up. But the fact that they're made to job out and they're made to look weak bothers me because it makes them look like jobbers, just a bunch of jobbers, just another rehash of what they did 10 years ago with the Nexus, which I spoke about in my 2010s review video, was an epic fail. And they eventually had to save it by having CM Punk join it and CM Punk be the head of it. The only time they ever did it really right was with the Shield. The Shield came out, they beat up Ryback and everything. That's one time out of many that they've done this sort of invasion storyline shit, and it was good. With this seems to be heading down the path of what the Nexus was, which is not good. Because Bobby Lashley defeated again Slapjack or whatever his name is. um, in the match last night. So once again, sucks. Um, Raw Underground is no more. It, it was here and gone. By the time they started having Baba Kato appear on the Kevin Owens show, I'm like, okay, uh, this is going nowhere. And then the bodyguard, Omo, Omo, I'm not sure how to pronounce his name, the Black Ninja. I mean, the Giant Ninja, the Black Ninja that was in Tozawa's group, Omo Bien or some shit like that. Um, AJ Styles' bodyguard. By by the time they had thank you, sir. By the time they had AJ Styles come out, it was just like, oh, hey, this guy's AJ Styles bodyguard. Again, they've done the bodyguard thing several times. They did it with Tamina Snooker and AJ Lee. They did it with, most famously, back in the day in 1994 with HBK and Diesel. And of course, even way before that with Randy Orton, um, Bob Orton and Roddy Piper leading into WrestleMania 1. So this is a trope, but this guy is massive. They call him the Black Khali. He's like Great Khali, Giant Gonzalez level. But I don't really know how much of an impact he'll make because again, what they do in WWE is this. The modern WWE, they 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 drag the storyline out. People get excited about it, and then they end it. Tucker. Think Otis and Mandy Rose. Think Raw Underground. I mean, Otis hasn't even cashed in his Money in the Bank yet. He's in a go nowhere feud with the Miz and John Morrison. It's like, shouldn't this guy be in the main event? He's one of them. He's one of the most talked about things about WrestleMania 36 this year, but he's floundering. He's all over the place. The best thing going on right now, besides the Sasha and Bailey stuff, is the Fiend and Alexa Bliss teaming up. Alexa Bliss has like a Sister Abigail type, and the Fiend turning babyface. So, and Roman Reigns retained the Universal Championship. He had Jimmy Uso uh, turn on his brother. So that was good. Once again, Roman Reigns, probably the best thing going on in the men's division in SmackDown right now. In other news, we're getting closer to the 2020 election. Like I said, whether you support Joe Biden or you support President Trump, get out and vote and make your voices be heard because this is a very historic election. If you agree with President Trump's vision of continuing the economy, continuing economic growth, going into the next year, 2021, or stifling it because you fear that COVID-19 might spread. Whatever your opinion is, go on and vote because we never know. Other elections have surprised us. For example, 2016, really surprising. So you never know. Besides that, there was another UFC event this past Saturday. Khabib Nurmagomedov, who was a guy I've talked about in my 20 10's review video that I feel like was one of the biggest breakout stars in mixed martial arts. Checking on my cat, nice. In mixed martial arts, um, in the 2010s, uh, one remain undefeated. People are saying that he may retire, which is really bad for MMA. And speaking of MMA, Jorge Masvidal, the BMF champion of MMA, is out there on the campaign trail campaigning for President Trump. And a lot of other celebrities are also campaigning for President Trump. And one of them is 50 Cent. And another is Ice Cube. I know I'm kind of late with this. Like, Ice Cube, to give my thoughts, and it should be a separate video, but how well, stream of consciousness, whatever. As far as Ice Cube and 50 Cent supporting President Trump, I mean, hey, that's their right as Americans. Once again, I said this with Kanye, I said this even with Cardi B and Joe Rogan and stuff. I don't think that celebrities should influence you on how you should vote. But I think as American citizens, they have the right, and as people in general, not even American citizens, I have German friends on here, but especially them as American citizens, they should be allowed to express their viewpoints, whether they're pro-Trump or pro-Biden. Just because they're rappers, there's no real reason to dismiss them. People like Ben Shapiro outright dismiss any celebrity that gives their opinion, especially when they're pro the Democrats. But that's not fair, you know. To be fair, Ice Cube is not pro any political party. He agreed to meet with both parties, but Joe Biden and Kamala Harris's side said that they wouldn't meet with him until after the election, which makes sense because they can't really do anything now on the campaign trail. But President Trump, who is in power right now as we speak, who's the president, can do something, and he has his platinum plan. He has his plan for Black Americans. And he agreed to work with Ice Cube for this time, and also if he if he happens to be reelected in November the 3rd. So that's good. Ice Cube is going to both sides, you know, trying to hear both sides out, having a fair and balanced approach. Now, 50 Cent is not doing that. He's completely supporting Donald Trump, and one of the reasons is because of the taxes. He feels that Joe Biden will raise taxes on people such as himself and businesses, which can't really be good for businesses at all. I feel like I've always felt like that's a really foolhardy approach that Democrats have. I understand why they have it, because guns and butter, they want to increase the social safety net by spending more taxes. But that just, that will make people that are wealthy that wouldn't really vote for you. And 50 Cent is wealthy. 50 Cent is a very successful businessman, so why would he want to vote for his taxes to be increased, much like somebody like Oprah? Why would they want to vote for that? You know what I mean? Like, Oprah came out and directly supported Barack Obama, but didn't really support Joe Biden or Hillary. So what does that really tell you? The rich is really on the side of a lot of the wealthy people. The wealthy business people are really on the side of President Trump, even though celebrities won't publicly say it. Publicly, they'll denounce Trump. They'll run us through the media because it's unpopular to be a Trump supporter in the world, but privately, they'll vote for Trump because it's better for their pocketbooks. People vote in their interests economically, so that's understandable. But 50 doesn't really care. 50's a troll, like we often said. 50, comes out and says his opinion, and his opinion is that he's going to vote for Trump. And a lot of people, he received a lot of backlash because people have a hive mindset, and people are like, "Oh, well, you said you support Trump, blah blah blah." So him and Ice Cube kind of received the same kind of treatment that um, uh, Kanye West received when he supported Trump before. It's like, again, it's a hypocritical mindset because it's like, I'm a celebrity and I can support my candidate only if it's the right candidate, only if it's the candidate you deem acceptable. And conservatives are guilty of this as well because when Cardi B interviewed Joe Biden, people said, well, Cardi shouldn't say anything. She's not even a political pundit. So what? And I defended her. Go back to that video when I did it in the dark. I defended her against the attacks of Candace Owens. I said, was her views ill-informed? Sure. But a lot of President Trump's views are ill-informed. They come from the gut. They come from his instincts. And that's what people like about him. And that's what also people liked really about Cardi. But just because she's a rapper doesn't mean she can't have a political opinion. Same thing with 50 Cent. Same thing with Ice Cube. Ice Cube is an intelligent man and he's playing really both sides. But if 50 wants to support Trump and his economic interest, so what? You want to blacklist him? You want to cancel him for that? Go right ahead. But again, and I said this in 2019, way back when cancel culture first started, I don't believe in canceling people because I believe we're all human beings and we all make mistakes. Do I agree with 50's choice? No, I really don't. I'm supporting Joe Biden, as I said before. But I'm voting in my economic self-interest, so I would fully expect that 50 Cent would also vote in his economic self-interest. There's nothing wrong with that. We all have we're all Americans, and we're all free to express our political opinions. And people that are blacklisting 50 Cent, I've always been a fan of 50 Cent since when he first came out with the Guess Who's Back mixtape that really blew up the streets in the early 2000s. So, I mean, you want to vote for Trump? Vote for Trump. You know what I mean? You want to support Trump? Support Trump. And Ice Cube playing both sides is really smart because you want to see what you can get from either side. Diddy coming out talking about there should be a black political party. That interview with Diddy on Revolt TV with Charlemagne was so fucking retarded because I mean I understood his point, but like there's no way you could come out with a political party of your own, man. Like third parties have tried, Green Party, Libertarian Party, but you can't have a party based on a racial identity. You just can't. You can barter with the two existing parties for economic incentives, sure, but you can't have a specifically based racial party in America. That's not going to go over well with people. You can have an agenda, but not a specific party. So he was coming from a really ill-informed place, and he just seemed really, I don't know, really, I don't know. He seemed kind of out of it in that interview, really. Like he didn't really know what he was talking about, really. I mean, yes, he supported Biden, but a lot of what he was saying was really incoherent in that interview. That guys like Trump should be banished. Like we don't banish people in the United States. This is not. This is not. Game of Thrones. You've been watching too much Game of Thrones if you think people should be banished. And calling for the death of people, really inappropriate on Diddy's part. And a lot of it is just bluster. A lot of it is just talk. I should hope he's not going to do anything to the President of the United States. But, yeah. And also in other news, Israel made peace with the Sudan. Last year, Sudan had new leadership, and um, you know, they're kind of moving away from the Islamic fundamentalist leadership that defined them for so long that it got them embroiled into a civil war. So they're kind of moving closer to normalizing relationships with the Jewish state, which is kind of cool, I guess, for an Arab state. Because if they have relations with Israel, at least superficial ones, they can make demands on the part of Israel for Arab citizens and Palestinians in the territory, I would think. Because again, if you're not even talking to your enemy opposition, then you don't have a gateway into that enemy opposition. If I can't even sit at the table with you, then I can't. The lines of communication are not even open in any way at all, ever. So that's good for Sudan. I know the people of Sudan really don't like it. It was just similar to back in the early 2000s when the United States had relations, quote unquote, relations with Musharraf's government in Pakistan. Um, you know, people didn't, people were like, the government of Pakistan was supposedly supporting us to fight the Taliban in the Peshawar region of the border between Afghanistan and Pakistan. But the people weren't. People were very militantly Islamic. So, um, it's kind of like that. Whereas the Sudanese people don't support normalizing relationships with Israel, but the government does. I'm sure it's like that in the other places that Israel has recently made quote unquote peace with, like the UAE and Oman, or other Arab countries, because, well, the war between the Jewish state and the Arab countries, goes on back hundreds of years. We talked about it on my channel and other channels. But anyway, guys, peace. Hope you have a blessed day. And I look forward to speaking to you guys again. And thank you for the love and support on the Borat Rudy Giuliani video. And again, despite who you support in this upcoming election, we're all Americans. We should all love each other and come together in unity. Unity and diversity. Diversity, not just a diversity. I know diversity is our strength. Not just diversity of like different ethnicities, but diversity of thought and diversity of opinion is what makes our nation great. Peace.